From now until Monday morning, code Espresso is 30% off as opposed to the normal 10%, so head over to gfuel.com and check out any starter pack, new tubs, or shakers if you're interested, and be sure to use code Espresso at checkout. Link in the description below. Modern Warfare has had a few patches as of the last few weeks, and with that has come a decent bit of weapon tuning between all of them since then. We covered a few weeks ago the top 5 weapons at that time, but I'd say that list has surprisingly changed a bit, with less and less of those that we'd covered back then staying in that list of what I'd say are absolutely dominant or the most dominant weapons in the game. So amidst the recent updates in weapon tuning, what weapons make the top 5 best weapons in Modern Warfare right now? Well, that's what we'll break down here, and towards the end of the video, I'd like to give 2 honorable mentions as well of weapons that are close but didn't quite make it in my books. And being that it is my books, it is a subjective video for sure, though I definitely think some are still some hard meta, but let me know if you agree, disagree, and what you'd add or replace to this list. And of course, if you are new, maybe consider subscribing. We're on that road to 300,000 subscribers, and I'd like to keep as many of you guys updated and informed about Modern Warfare daily as possible. But anyways, let's get into the weapon list. Surprisingly, the updates have favored the SMG meta as of late. 3 of these new weapons entering our top 5 are SMGs, which, given the M4 spam, may seem a bit crazy, but they're worth a look for sure. The first weapon I want to talk about is one that's been one of my favorites as of recently, actually, that being the AUG. Now, with this, the biggest key here for this is the 5.56 ammo for this weapon. At the base, the AUG expels 9mm rounds, but when you add those 5.56 rounds, they increase the stopping power, lower the cycle rate to control the recoil, and as a result, offer more damage and better range is gained. So the 5.56 is integral to this in not only the performance, but also if you're looking to make the classic variation of the AUG, this is a key portion of it, or at least one of the key portions of doing so. But lately the 5.56 actually had a buff, which is kind of crazy given that, again, it's probably the best part of the AUG. It was previously listed as just the AUG in general until a few hours after the notes went up for said update, but the AUG had an increase to the close range damage as well as an increase to the mid-range damage, which is awesome. But again, when you find out that it's for the 5.56, well, it's kind of a damper that it's not applicable to the entire weapon, but it's really not, given that, again, I don't think that I'd run this weapon without the 5.56. The AUG was already a formidable weapon when it comes to SMGs, and the 5.56 already put it a leg above the rest, but I'd definitely say that this is now easily a top 5 at this point. With a lack of recoil, a relatively quick ADS time with the right attachments, and a damage profile that's at the top of the SMGs and can rival rifle play with its profile and fire rate, it's honestly a pretty decent choice in just about any situation of play. The next weapon I want to talk about that I think has made its way over into the top 5 now is that of the MP7. Now, the MP7 hasn't had much changes as of late, and actually, to my knowledge, I don't even think that it's had any adjustments since its base with the launch of the game. But with other weapons shifting up and down, this one kinda, to me, just naturally snuck in the back door into the ranks. The MP7, with the right loadout, has been able to kick ass since launch, but with a lack of recoil, quick handling, and mobility, plus its fire rate, it's honestly a really solid choice. If you're a run-and-gun player, you've probably come across the MP7, but realistically, with the hard meta of things recently, like the M4A1, like the AK, like the 7.25 in recent times, you probably didn't come across it as much as you may have. But the MP7, now that other weapons are again kind of shifting up and down those ranks, I think that it kind of presents itself as that stable constant that's absolutely fantastic. Toss on a barrel of your choice, the FFS Recon for more range play, or the FFF SWAT for the close quarters play, in my opinion, and then throw on a stock of something like the FFS Close Quarters, and you're in business. You can absolutely run through enemies, and again, you do the right combination here of it. You got that quick up, which really capitalizes and utilizes the handling of the weapon, plus also with the right attachments on, say, the barrel, you can not only tear through enemies at close quarters where you need a quick reaction time, but you can also shred players at range even with an SMG. And that, to me, is something that I don't think it's fair to do a direct comparison, but it's reminiscent almost to me of that of the MP7 from, say, Modern Warfare 3. And you guys probably know how much of a legendary weapon that is. So in the right hands, it's absolutely fantastic, and I think just squeaks into that top 5. Again, all of these aren't really in any particular order, but if I were to rank this one, I'd probably say put it at the number 5 spot. Regardless, it's definitely up there for me. Before we talk about the other weapon that I think has broken into the top 5 here with this, I want to talk about some weapons that you probably know of that there's really still no denying they're in the top 5, Firstly, that being the M4. I think that this is kind of self-explanatory. It's been the go-to weapon since launch and even before with the beta, but with the right attachments, again, this thing absolutely shreds in close quarters, medium range, and even long range. With the right loadout and of course the accuracy and ability to tap fire, it's just still one of the best, if not the best weapon in the game, and there's really no denying it. If I were to suggest anything, I'd definitely say put on the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, put on sleight of hand, a stippled grip tape, and a stock to end up mitigating some of that ADS time you lose with that barrel, but also gain in the range. And it's still something that seriously you can compete at any different level that you want to play at, whether that be close quarters, whether that be something of a medium range like a rifle's more so suited towards. The M4 is just still the all-around titan of this game, if you were to ask me. And if I'm not mistaken, I still think that it does have the fastest TTK of all the weapons, and especially all the rifles. But then outside of that, another weapon that is still a top, we talked about in depth in our last top 5, is that of the AK-47. This one, again, just kind of in the same boat here as the M4. I just don't think that there's really any denying it when it comes to the properties and what it offers. The damage profile is slightly higher than the M4 in its damage per shot, if I'm not mistaken, but if you can control that recoil, if you can control that handling, you're definitely in for a weapon that can do very well for you. And if you're like me that doesn't really want to use the M4, they may have gotten that gold already. Again, I've done that. And realistically, outside of just using the meta weapon, I don't have any other purpose of using it. The AK-47 is a definitely formidable weapon once again. Same with the M4, you can toss on some different stocks, some different grips and barrels to make it a little bit more mobile of a weapon, or you can stock up on it and make it a little bit beefier in terms of, say, the RPK variation here with it. And the final weapon to round out this top 5, what I believe is the top 5 weapons right now within Modern Warfare, is one that we are kind of, I don't want to say wishy-washy on, but we're mentioning that it could be in and it could be out. But right now, I think that it's kind of solidified as it's in place within that top 5, but that being the MP5. Now, we talked about the AUG having one specific thing that really makes or breaks the weapon, and the MP5 is kind of the same way here with this. As mentioned here on the channel, the 10mm rounds are definitely something that I wouldn't want to use this weapon without. What it ends up doing for the weapon, of course, is adding on its damage as well as its range for a slight decrease in its fire rate and also control for that recoil, making it a little bit more of a kick on that weapon. But when you consider that the MP5 really doesn't have all that much going against it, you really don't lose out on anything. It's very easy to control recoil-wise. It's got a decent fire rate, even with the decrease with that 10mm, and of course with the extra damage. You can two-shot headshot someone, if I'm not mistaken, here with this. And so, therefore, when you think about going into a close-quarter situation, this and the MP7 are probably my two favorite weapons right now that I would definitely recommend. And of course, while the AUG is up there, the AUG is a little bit more in terms of that medium range as well. But these ones are more so specialized for the close-quarters engagements, and when you toss on some things like the FSS Lite or the FTAC collapsible stock and stuff that just helps you get that gun up real quick, you can snap onto enemies with absolute ease. So definitely recommend this one, and that is the ones that kind of close out what I think are the solid top 5 here with us. But as we mentioned earlier in the video, there are 2 honorable mentions, and they're really ones that you might be questioning why they weren't in here, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Firstly, the 725. I think this is still one that is still out there, but to me, I think that it's kind of slipping in the power rankings. It's still a hard contender for a top 5, and if I were to actually competitively rank these, I'd say that it's probably at that 5th spot, but maybe on the outside looking in. Because of its recent updates, it's not as meta of a weapon. It's not as something that is absolutely powerful as it was. You're going to get a lot more hit markers now at that medium range than you, say, would have beforehand. I know that personally, even just doing some testing whenever it got some nerfs, I was getting annoyed because I was like, well, this thing is kind of a pea shooter now in some cases. Granted, of course, it's a shotgun, so close quarters, it's still going to win gunfights, but it doesn't have that rifle range like it did before, making it a definitive top 5 weapon in my opinion. And if they continue to mess with this, I think that it's going to slip out of those power rankings even further. And the final weapon we'll talk about is one that I'm kind of putting on here because it is a top 5 weapon in the right hands, but you're kind of the villain anytime you use it. That being the Magnum, and more specifically, the Magnum with the snake shot. For those that don't know much about it, the snake shot is something that are rounds that are filled with buckshot. So it's almost like a shotgun, but as a Magnum, so as a pistol. And when you add on things like the match grade trigger and the long barrel for this, it is almost like the 7.25 pre-patch and making it, again, one of the more toxic weapons, but also still surprisingly really freaking good for a pistol, no less. So it's something that I've come in contact with increasingly over the past couple of days, and having seen it myself, I haven't personally ranked up the Magnum in regular matches to do this to players on live servers. I've done my own testing back-end in private matches and such, but it's up there. I definitely think that the amount that you start to see it now, it is becoming a more so increasingly meta weapon to use. Will it outgun an M4 at range? Will it outgun an MP7 or AUG at range like we talk about here in this video? No, but it is something that when given the opportunity, it can definitely mess you up and of course be something that really is irritating to go up against in close quarter situations. But that said, that is the weapons here that I would definitely classify as the top 5 weapons within Modern Warfare. And of course, there's 2 honorable mentions, which I think are definitely still viable in that contention for the top 5, but overall practicalness anymore, I don't know if I would definitely say they're the best 5 weapons. But anyways, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Again, is there anything in particular that you would add to this list, take away, whatever it may be? Feel free to let me know your thoughts. All subjective, but wanted to share my thoughts here based off of recent updates and recent tuning. But hopefully enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare. Anything updates, news, information, top 5 weapons like this, anything will keep you guys in the loop on the daily. So if you guys are interested in that, hit the subscribe button. And if you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.